So this is Danny Flexen here for Seconds Out. Delighted to be joined by one half of S-Jam Boxing, rather, slip of the tongue. Shane Watson, how you doing?
Yeah, we're not getting in a promotional game, man. Managing stressful enough. I felt like we had to do one promotion, and that was the Florian Marco show. Believe me, it's not something I want to do again.
Made it out of Albania alive, so that's something.
That's it. Yeah, made it Albania live, got the win, got another belt. So all in all, it was a good experience.
And we'll obviously talk about Florian shortly, but we have to start with the big man, the Juggernaut, Joe Joyce. Got a great win, probably the best win of his career in terms of the performance and the quality of opposition against Joseph Parker on Saturday night. How much of a kind of emotional roller coaster was it watching that unfold?
You know what, man? This is. I looked at myself on camera and I was like, the way I acted was not the way I acted. You shouldn't celebrate when someone gets knocked out like that. You shouldn't. I don't know. It wasn't a very professional way I reacted because whenever someone else does that, I usually think like, "What an idiot!" Yeah, but I can't explain how emotional it was, man. Like I've been with Joe for the last. I've been good friends with Joe for a long time now, but the last three training camps I've been doing with him in Vegas, so for long periods of time. So obviously we've got a lot closer in that time. And when you see what he's doing in the gym, and I'm like, oh my god, I wish everyone else could just see this because like it's unbelievable. He's barely getting hit with many shots. He's like knocking down world level guys, hurting them and whatnot, and all kinds of things. And I'm like, if he can just put this, what we've done in sparring in the ring on Saturday night, well, obviously now being last Saturday night, um, everyone's gonna be like, wow, yeah. And I was just like, please do it, because, and then obviously we've got to fight week, and I was feeling really confident. I really did believe in him. Really did believe in him. I know how good he is. I know exactly what he's got in his locker, and that can expose a lot of heavyweights and expose another one on the weekend. But that was the first time we knew that Joe was stepping with genuine world level opposition. The bar is still a bit of an unknown quantity because we don't know. Beating Trevor Bryan doesn't suggest he's world level, does it? So, and the only other fight had since then is Bogdan Dinu, and that also doesn't suggest it, even though he got rid of them both in good fashion. Until he fights a Joseph Parker, a Dillian White, or even like a Carlos Takam. I mean, we don't really know how good he is because the only time he's really stepped up to anywhere near world level was Joe Joyce. And at the time, we didn't know if Joe was world level. Like going off of his opponents, he got knocked out. Um, so we don't. So the Parker fight was actually seeing Joe with genuine world level, and at the time, it looked like Parker was putting in career best performances, looking at the best he's been in his whole career. Now you have to take all that into account. So obviously, yeah, I was a bit nervous. Emotions got the better of me, but what a night, man! It was the best night of my life. Like just to see someone finally get the recognition he deserves, to get that big crowd like all chasing after him. There was like 14,000 in there in the end, which is by far Joe's biggest crowd he's fought in front of. It would have been the bar if it went behind closed doors, but unfortunately it was. And just to see him get all of that like recognition and that he deserves, like it meant the world to me. And to see him get that win because it's so important because we didn't need to fight Joseph Parker. We need to remember this, yeah. We could have done what Andy Yard is doing or other fighters do, but just wait their time and wait for the opportunity to come. But Joe's not that kind of guy. He wants to test himself against the best people. And Parker was genuinely the best guy we could get in the ring. If Joe could have fought Fury or AJ or Usyk, he would have done that as well. But none of them were available. So Parker was the next best available guy. And he went in there and done an absolute demolition job on him, in my opinion. And that says a lot about Joe rather than it does about Parker. Because we know how good Parker is, how tough he is, how fast his hands are, how fast his head movement is. But all of that was irrelevant on Saturday night.
He landed some good shots, though, Parker, at times. I think he was overwhelmed eventually by Joe's pressure. But were there any points when you were nervous that you thought the tide may have been turning the other way? Because we all know Joe's got a great chin, but you see him taking those big shots flush. You think surely there's some point he is going to crack.
I mean, it's never nice seeing your fighters get hit, especially when they're getting hit by a world level heavyweight clean at times. But if I like to be honest, I haven't actually watched it back yet because number one, I'm struggling to get the BT box office thing to work, and number two, I honestly haven't had time. Actually, I haven't had time. I am going to watch it back either tonight or tomorrow. But from what I saw ringside, And from what I was hearing from people, he wasn't. Listen, he did get caught flush a few times. He's fighting a very good fighter, so it's expected. But it wasn't like a Takam type performance where he was just getting caught clean
No.
continuously, or even when he walked onto a couple against Hammer. So for me, I wasn't as nervous because that was when I was nervous because he was taking unnecessary shots. You're going to get caught with some good shots off a good fighter like Parker because that's why he's at that level. But I wasn't overly nervous. The only thing I get nervous about is just because I'm so close to him, I guess, really, and like that, how important the fight was because that's now really put him in a good position to fight Usyk, which has to happen unless Undisputed happens, and it will be ordered by March 24th, I believe. So it's just all that is just all on the line against a great competitor in Parker as well. So that's the only reason why I was nervous. But no, not really. I know how tough Joe is, and I know that he can take shots like that. Obviously, in an ideal world, I'd rather he doesn't. Number one, you can lose rounds, and number two, just durability throughout his career, but just for his own health when he gets older. But I can't really fault him because he took way less shots than what he has done in the past of fighters that were not as good as Parker. And when I look at it in reality, I'm like, well, how can I say anything? He took less shots off an even better heavyweight than what he usually does. So, but yeah, obviously you always get nervous, but it was when it got to round 4 or 5, I knew the fight was kind of over. There was the power was taken out of Parker's shots. He had nothing left in the tank. And at that time, they were just shots that were bouncing off his face. It wasn't anything with real intent. The body work was the best work that actually Parker threw in the fight, but a lot of the time, fighters don't get as much credit for their body work because obviously it's not like making a head bounce back or something like that and whatnot. People want to see the head KOs, but his body work was really good at the time with Parker actually. But he started off with a decent jab to the body, but he couldn't keep it going. And this is what we knew when we made the fight. I said to Adam, I said to Joe, I said to Salah, that this guy hasn't got the tank to compete with someone like Joe. He gassed out against Dylan White. He went missing for 5 or 6 rounds and had a second wind because Dylan White also didn't have the gas tank to put on him. Chisora, the reason why he couldn't get him out there because he didn't have the engine to get him out there. Chisora was in the corner saying, come on, finish me off. And he didn't have the gas tank to do it. And in Chisora 1, I don't know what happened in that fight. I mean, that was just bizarre, like getting dropped that quick. And I felt like he thought a fight he didn't need to fight in the first one. But and even against Junior Fight, he ran out of options, ran out of ideas. It's just continuously throughout his career, he's shown that he needs to take rounds off. And there's one heavyweight in the world that is not going to allow you to take rounds off, and that's Joe Joyce. And that's a problem for any heavyweight because every heavyweight is going to need to take rounds off because no other heavyweight can punch for 12 rounds.
You talked about the WBO ordering by, was it March 24th? The mandatory shot, unless Undisputed happens. Yeah. None of us know exactly what's going to take place, but how do you see it unfolding? What do you think is the most likely scenario?
These are the different scenarios I can see happening, right? So in an ideal world, we'd fight Usyk for the world heavyweight title, and that would honestly be amazing. Of course, that's what we want to do. We don't want to just get elevated or fight someone much lower level. We want to fight the best. Joe wants to fight the best. Joe believes he is the best. So beating Usyk would definitely prove that. But I think Fury's going to fight Mahmoud Charr December 3rd. Absolutely going to. I've been saying it for the last 4 months. I just knew it. What Fury does before a fight gets made, he starts randomly calling them out on Instagram, like random people. He did it with Schwartz. He did it with Otto Wallin, like randomly, but no one even knew who they were. And then he's done it with Charr like months ago. He randomly caused a feud that doesn't exist of him on social media. And that's usually because he's going to be the cop-out when the Joshua fight doesn't get made, which it never was going to. And it just makes it look more acceptable to fans. But for some reason, Fury just wants an easy fight. I mean, maybe he deserves it, maybe he doesn't. But I feel like if you're calling yourself the best heavyweight in the world and you're fighting Mahmoud Charr, you're not really backing up your claims because that guy I think he's fought 5 rounds in about 6 years or something. Something ridiculous like that, or it might be 6 rounds in 5 years, same difference really. But hasn't ever beaten anyone really of any note. Has lost at been knocked out at cruiserweight, been knocked out at heavyweight. Yeah, he's normally done. I think he's 37 now, and he's not shown any signs of improvement. I mean, Joe gets better at 37, but Charr doesn't even fight. So, and he's not in the top 15 of any governing bodies. So, it is a bit of a disappointment. But I expected it. So I expect that to happen December 3rd. Usyk's currently out of injury, and I think obviously much well-deserved family time with what's going on back in his home country. So, but I expect Undisputed to happen in maybe March, April, May, around that time. And then when that happens, I expect the champion to vacate and retire. So whoever that may be, and then I think Joe will just become will get installed as champion, and then he will have to fight the next guy in his weight class. At the moment, I believe, no, sorry, not in the weight class, in his governing body, which at the moment I believe is Frank Sanchez. So that's the way I see it unfolding. It's not the way I want it to. If I got my wish list, he would fight Usyk for the belts, beat Usyk, become a superstar, which he's kind of on the way to becoming anyway, and then have a massive fight with Fury at like Wembley Stadium or something, or whoever is around at the time, AJ, whatever. But if if Joyce gets elevated to full champion, I'd quite like to see, if the WBO would allow it, I'm not sure. I'd like to see his first defense be against Anthony Joshua in Nigeria. I think that'd be a massive fight.
Wow. Yeah, well, I know Joshua's team have talked about going to Africa for a number of years now, so it seemed like a natural one to make.
Yeah, Joshua would never fight Joyce. He wouldn't have the bottle to fight Joyce. But if it's for a world title in Nigeria, I think some things are too hard to turn down, especially when you're in the position that he's in right now. No one is going to give him a world title shot. Let's just be real, because no one wanted to fight him really when he had belts, and then he hasn't got any. Especially coming off of 2 defeats, because now the reward of like beating an elite level fighter, that kind of aura is going now, because obviously coming off 2 defeats and he's had 3 out of his last 5. So even if you, and it is a massive risk because Giggs is still whack and he's still got good boxing abilities. So that's the risk and reward factor, apart from for financial reasons, is starting to disappear a little bit. But if he gets out on December 17th, which I believe he is, and gets a good win against a top 15 guy, which I believe they are setting up, then that might bring a little bit more of that back. But Joyce, Joshua, there's a bit of needle there. They don't really like each other. Goes back from the GB days, both Nigerian. I mean, it's not often you can say something like that. 2 elite level heavyweights are both from Nigeria and British at the same time. So it'd be huge. It'd be huge. And we proper back Joe to get the KO over Joshua.
If the Undisputed does take place, as you predict, in spring next year, will Joe fight in the interim before being elevated or getting his shot?
Yeah, absolutely. One thing that Joe looks better with is activity. The reason why you saw Joe look like he did against Hammer compared to Parker because he wasn't active and he wasn't with his trainer enough. So all of these mistakes that he was making in camp got taken into the Hammer fight. That was the worst mistake Parker made by not fighting Joe on July 2nd. Even though I still believe Joe would have won, I think it would have been a much more competitive fight because Joe wasn't 100%. Even in the Parker fight, Joe could still be better than that. Believe me, I've seen him better than that in sparring. I've seen him better than that in gym. But it was a much better performance from him. But yeah, that was a big mistake from his management's behalf and his behalf, in my opinion. And but that is what it is. Hopefully, Parker can still get the big fights because he's still a great fighter, still a big name. He still brings a lot to the table. We just come up against an absolute terminator that night, and stylistically, his worst nightmare, in my opinion.
So if Joyce does fight in the interim, either before or around the same time as an undisputed fight between Fury and Usyk, what sort of opposition would you be looking at?
It's a difficult one because obviously, if he was to fight Usyk for a belt, like let's just say he was promised a fight against Usyk if he beat Fury, obviously a southpaw would be an ideal idea, like someone like Otto Wallin or someone like that. But you don't. Number one, like I said, I think whoever fights, either of those 2 fight each other, I think they're going to retire. And number 2, you don't know who's going to win, do you? So one's a southpaw and one's not. But even though Free can box southpaw as well, but it's difficult. I think it just has to be a genuine top 15 guy, top 10 guy that Joe respects, that Joe can get up for in training camp, and ultimately Joe will beat. But I think he can be anyone, to be honest with you. But we also don't want to, at the same time, risk the slot that he has so much. You don't want him to be in too hard of a fight. He then has to take loads of time off. It's just about getting it right, really. But he has to have another. He can't not fight for, say, September and then it's next summer. That's almost like a year. So, or spring or whatever, like 8 or 9 months. He's good when he's active. Someone like him should be fine at least twice a year. So, with that in mind, he would need a fight before. But yeah, it couldn't be like a really low level guy because he's built that name for himself now, and you kind of need to jump on that. And also, we want someone that's going to bring the best out of him. People like Hammer, people of that level, like even Takam, they just didn't bring the best out of him because they didn't respect them. And that's why you see the poor performances. But the best performance are the people that he respect. Dubois respected him, great performance. Parker respected him, great performance again. And he actually KO'd, not TKO, straight 10 count KO'd both of them, which for me is quite cool because I feel like that never really happens in boxing these days anymore, does it? I feel like referees are always quite quick to call off fights, but it's always nice to get a good old fashioned KO.
I think it was the Metro still called it a stoppage. It really annoyed me yesterday.
Is it KO? I heard number 10
Oh no,
when
it's
the
definitely
referee
KO.
and I wave it off. Like, that is a KO. I feel like we're just so used to TKOs these days. People forgot what KOs are.
Well, there you go. Joe Joyce bringing the KO back.
That's it, bringing it back.
How gratifying is it for you on a personal level, knowing Joe as well as you do, how close you are, that he's finally getting that credit and that mainstream media spotlight that he perhaps hasn't had so far?
You know what? This is why I get so emotional, man, because like he is like, without sounding a bit cringe or weird, yeah. Like I spent more time with him than I do my own family, yeah. Like, so obviously I've got that kind of feel for him. Like he's a big part of my life. Like I see him as family. Like, I'll do anything for him if he ever need me for anything. I pretty much do anyway. But like I'll do anything for him. Like so I say, like I'm so emotionally invested in him. So he deserves it. Like he got robbed for Olympic gold. Absolutely robbed. So he never got the credit for that he deserved. Never got treated like an Olympic gold medalist, which he should have, which he's lost out on financially as well. Because of course you're not going to get as good sponsorship deals and fight deals because ultimately the Olympic gold tag isn't there, is it? So, and he's lost out on all that. He should have had the absolute like hero welcoming back at Heathrow Airport, which he didn't get because he had a silver medal, which he shouldn't have had. So not only did he miss out there, he missed out on the heroes welcoming after the Dubois fight because of COVID. And it's just like, this guy gets no luck whatsoever. Bearing in mind the fight got called off, I think, was it twice as well? And that was 2 training camps he had to spend money on to deliver on as well. Like, this is literally what I mean by no luck. Then when you think the Parker's fight happening, it's not. They have to fight Christian Hammer and get loads of stick for that as well, but it's not his fault. And then I was like, mate, this guy gets no luck whatsoever. Then finally the Parker fight happens. And then he gets what he deserves, you know. So good things come to those who wait, they say. So it's amazing to see it because he really does deserve it. He deserves the financial rewards that he's going to get now. He's been paid well as well, by the way. It's not saying he hasn't got that, but the super financial rewards. And it's good to see him get the recognition he deserves. I don't think he even cares that much about money. He just wants to be the best in the division and wants to get the respect of people that he deserves. And obviously, money is nice as well. I mean, we all do enjoy it and like it, especially Joe because he likes his holidays and things like that. But yeah, it's great to see it, and it's really good to see. You know, whenever I used to speak about Joe, people just take the piss out of me all the time and laugh at me like I was talking like some idiot. They'd be like, no, he's too slow, he's robotic, he gets hit with too many shots. You all just sound like casuals when you talk, man. Like, I'm talking about high level pundits here, by the way, that talk live on Sky Sports or live on BT, and I'm like, how do these guys earn a living doing this? They just talk absolute rubbish all the time. Like they're haters. Like they knock out their number one boy, BT's guy, Dubois, and then they're all still hammering him afterwards. I'm like, but then Dubois fights against Dino, and they're all like, oh my god, Dubois back. I'm like, hold on a minute, like what's going on there? Like it just seems like there's an agenda against him a lot of the time, and he's like the nicest guy ever. I don't get why anyone have an agenda against him, but it is what it is. I'm just so over the moon for him. So over the moon he's going to get the opportunities. So over the moon that Eshjam have been able to matchmake him well and get him into the right position as number one now. That is cemented, and being interim champion is really good because it goes to a 60-40 split in the WBO. I'm not sure about Dylan White's WBC one, but in the WBO it does anyway.
Moving on.
And so it's secure. I know. I'm like, I better be careful what I say about these interim terms. I think with the White girls at 20% or something. So, but luckily WBO don't go off past earnings. They go off like the fact of interim status. That's why fighting people like. That's why we decided to fight people like Parker. But so it gets you that as well. So financially, it's very lucrative for the Juggernaut, and it gets him more. Most importantly, more than anything, the opportunity, because a lot of heavyweights ain't going to want to fight Joe Joyce, and they don't. So you have to almost force yourself to get in there, or if he gets elevated to world champion, then people are going to have to fight him. So, and that's what I'm talking about, the whole Andy Joshua situation. Like, that he's going to be in a position where he hasn't really got a lot of other places to go. So fighting like someone like Joe Joyce is going to be high on the list.
Now let's whiz through some other SJAM fighters while I've got you on, starting with Florian Marco, who we mentioned at the start of the interview. He's had his big homecoming now. What's next for him? When are we going to see him back on UK soil?
Yeah. So I'm hoping he's going to be back in December. Awaiting on some dates and confirmation from Boxer. So I'm hoping he can be in with another title defense, decent level guy, another little learning fight. I mean, Albania fight, I felt really bad for him. It was a really stressful time for him, actually. It should have been something he was able to enjoy a bit more because it was his homecoming, it was his loyal fans who turned up. But where no one's really promoted a show of that size there before, they were relying on him to do a lot of the dirty work in the sense of like promoting the fight, people pulling out, like glove situation. There was so much stuff going on, and he was never the whole camp able to focus on his training camp, focus on what actually really mattered was about getting in the ring. So I really do feel sorry for him. As much as he's still got a win against a decent level opponent, got a new belt, it could have been a lot better from the end. And he's tons better than that. People saw against Chris Jenkins and many other good fighters that he's way better than that. But whatever could have gone wrong that night went wrong, and he's still got the W, and that's what matters. But we see him against another decent level guy. And then I think for his next fight, like let's just say he gets through that all well, March time, I'd like the Tyrone McKenna fight. That's the fight I like.
It's a good fight. And then Johnny Fisher, obviously huge ticket seller, but gradually increasing that level of opposition. He's come back from injury now as well. What's next for him?
Yeah, so he fights October 29th on the Wembley show, Kate Taylor headlining. He's fighting a 3-0 guy, so it is like a step up for him. David Trillera, whose name is. He's decent. He's a good inside fighter. Not as big as Johnny. I think Johnny can keep him off at range. Eventually get his right hand off, bouncing off his head. I think we get a KO early in there as well. But he is decent. David Trillera is no mug. He's beaten winning record guys, and he's 3-0 boxing career already. So it's a nice little step up for him. And we've got John Hedges on that bill as well. He's fighting a guy with 17 wins and 9 defeats. So nice little step up for him. Well, he's been stepping up anyway. He's got 2 stoppages back to back against guys with winning records. So he's going to be stepping up with a slightly more experienced dude than the last couple. But that's good. I think this will be his last 6 rounder as well before we move him up to 8 rounds. So yeah, it's good to steady progress from those lads. And then we've got Guido out the day before actually in Italy. So he's fighting the infamous Jay McFarlane.
Yeah, I saw the report of it. Yeah.
So it's just without being disrespectful, Jay McFarlane at all, by the way, because Guido is taking him really seriously. He's coming to England actually on Monday to start sparring, so he's investing a lot of money in the camp. But this is seen as from Top Rank and maybe slightly ourselves as just a tick over and a warm up before we fight a massive fight early next year on like a chief support of like a major card against an undefeated heavyweight prospect at Top Rank. So.
And then perhaps most intriguing, Lorraine Richards, in that we know he's no longer with Matchroom. He's in genuine world class now after his big win that he had. Where's he going from here?
I know. You know what? I feel so bad for Lorraine. We get a lot of get asked us all the time, and there's only so much I can really say. We're in talks with a few promoters that are top promotional companies. It's just about getting it right now because. Listen, we're at we're not the final phase. That's probably a bit disrespectful, actually. He's got a good 5, 6 years left in the sport, but we want to give him a home now and somewhere that he feels comfortable, somewhere that he's happy, and somewhere that he can get a bit of form going under. As much as he's got good wins, he's never really had form or momentum in his career. He's more had good wins, and then he goes missing for a long time. It happened with the Leonard Clark fight. It didn't happen with the Cowless, in fairness, it didn't. But it happened with Gongora again. So we just need to find him a home now and somewhere that he can kind of just like be happy with in his career and strongly with, because it is the last 5 or so years of his career. I know that's still quite a long time, but they're all going to be big fights, so that there's less fights in those 5 years, isn't there? So yeah, I want to find somewhere that he can call a home. By the way, that's not to say that Matchroom or Frank Warren did bad by him at all, but it's just not everything always works out always the way that you think or hope it would do. So that's all it is really. But yeah. We've taken a bit of time to do that, but we just got to make sure we get the deal that's right for him, really.
I'd quite like to see him against Zach Parker. I think they're both on the fringes of a genuine world title shot, differing styles that should mesh quite well. I think that's a cracking fight.
Yeah, I mean, actually, we were in talks for that, actually. We were quite close on agreeing money. Frank put down, I think, was a good offer in the end, and we were speaking, and then the Andrade fight got called. We were really unlucky, actually. And that's not Frank's fault, that's not Parker's fault, that's not Lorraine's fault, that's not our fault. It's just, well, how can we talk him out of fighting basically Andrade for a mandatory position at the world title. I mean, it's fair enough. You can't really argue that. But then obviously Andrade's pulled out now. But they're just going down a ladder, aren't they? So, and I can't remember if Lorraine is in the WBO, but I think he's not as high as some of the guys that are probably going to take it. But I think John Ryder's been offered next. It's a shame because Lorraine should be number 2, number 3 in every governing body. The names he's beaten are better than, like, who, I mean, disrespectful. Who is that Parker beaten? His best win is a guy called Andrew Murdoch, and I don't think anyone's ever heard of him since. And the other best win, again, without being disrespectful, is Marcus Morrison. He just got knocked out by Denzel Bentley in 4 rounds at middleweight.
I think it's Rohan Murdoch, isn't it?
Oh, Rohan
rather
Murdoch.
than Andrew.
Who's Andrew
I
Murdoch?
guess that kind of proves your point, though, doesn't it?
Yeah. I mean, that does prove the point. And yet, he's got this powerful status. I mean, it's credit to Sauerland because they actually did get him in that position. And in fact, Warren's probably been good at like hammering the WBO down for it. But Lorraine's beating Gongora, like, who is a killer, by the way. He knocked out Ali Akmadov out cold. And like no one wanted to fight him. And he's beaten Giovanni De Carolis in a way that no one's beaten him. De Carolis then went and knocked out that other guy. I can't remember his name. On the Match from Italy show, he was like 18-0, 19-0. Oh, that was it. Was it the Scardina? That was it. Scardina.
Yeah.
Knocked him out. Like, and everyone thought De Carolis had done it. It just shows you how good Lorraine was, really, didn't it? Right. And then obviously Leonard Clark away from home. And Leonard Clark was in good form at the time and active. As he then went to knock out Willie Hutchison after that. I know that he didn't look good against Mark Heffron, but inactivity and injuries, I think, are kind of setting him back. But he just never gets the credit he deserves. And it's such a shame because he's such a good fighter. And with his ability, no one's really going to want to fight him. That's the kind of the troubles we constantly find ourselves in. And but he's good. He's good mentally. He's in a good place, and we'll get over it soon. He'll be a proper super middleweight world champion soon. But I think for him, I think he needs a bit of activity. I think a nice 10-rounder against a solid level guy would do him some good stead, and then we can look at world honours after that.
Great stuff. Shane, really appreciate the time. Congratulations on the big win at the weekend. I know you weren't in there, but it probably felt like you were throwing the punches.
Well, we actually had 4 wins. We had 4 wins on the weekend.
Oh, okay.
We had Junaid Boston with a KO.
Yeah.
Again, he's a really exciting talent. He's got so much about Prince Naz about him. His personality, his style. He's going to be a really good star to watch in the future. Like, I love his attitude as well. People might love him or hate him, but luckily I quite like him. So he got a really good attitude. Sol Dakers got another win, 10-rounder against Bracamonte, who's unbelievably tough. Honestly don't know how Fraser knocked him out in 2 rounds. That guy's so tough. But now in 5 fights, he's ranked in the top 60 in box rec. I think number 10 in Britain. So he's in a good position to start maybe looking at titles. And Tommy Fletcher, actually, it's quite a shame he didn't really get the recognition he deserved on the weekend because he fought after the main event because he was a live float. He didn't really get the recognition he deserved, but he got a good 4th-round KO. Bearing in mind, he was in the arena from 4 o'clock, so he had to wait 7 hours, all hand-wrapped and gloved up before he could even fight. So it's an absolute nightmare, an experience, but a nightmare. And still going there and get a KO against an experienced dude, I was quite happy about that. So
good stuff. Well, yeah, really appreciate it, and long may it continue. Let's catch up again soon.
right, man, take care, mate.